Welcome to the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson, Rick Avalos, and their special guest. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in to our Image Critique Show. This is such a blast that Rick and I have doing this show, and we're glad to see you guys, and especially some of you regulars. That's very cool, and some new faces. Just to jump in and see what we're doing, and we're having some fun, so that's very cool. Now tonight, unfortunately, Rick is not available. He's actually doing work, making money, so he could not join us this evening. But we have, of course, Cliff. Welcome, Cliff, our usual good friend and engineer of the show, the director of the. Yeah, he's going whatever. He just pushes a button. So how are you, Cliff?
Yeah, but the pay's great, so you know.
We keep talking. We're gonna double his salary next time for next pay. And then we have sitting in for Rick this evening, our good friend Kevin Holliday. You guys are familiar with Kevin. Hi, Kev. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for jumping in at the last minute.
You know what I was going to do? I was going to try to find a profile picture of Rick and then superimpose my hair on his head.
I thought of something like that too, and I was going to see if we could just put Rick's face.
Leave my profile shot, like I could just turn my camera off, and that would be Rick there with my hair on his head.
You'd have to have his hair spiked like yours does.
Man,
too funny. Well, gang, this evening we have a really good friend of mine from for many years, a phenomenal artist. I always tell people that Thom kind of rotates on his own orbit around the earth. Please go look at his work, Mr. Thom Rouse. Thom, thank you, sir. How are you? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good. Glad to be here. You have this isn't just Colorado. I see Yeti here.
Yeah, Yeti's here. Yeah, hey Yeti, how you doing, bud?
Hi, how are you, Thom?
Good.
Thank you for being here. What an honor.
I think you're a new neighbor. Are you in Connecticut or Mass?
New Hampshire.
No, neither one. New Hampshire, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, everything's close here. We're practically neighbors.
Yeah,
right.
Say everything's close there.
You're all neighbors up there.
That's
Yeah, we're out here. We have to drive for several hours before we get to another state. Where there you can do it in 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, so Ricky couldn't join us, so we have some wonderful stand-ins for we were just introducing Thom, dear old friend. Actually, Thom and I kind of grew up a few miles apart in Illinois, didn't even know it, but like 30 miles apart or something like that, and didn't know it till we were well into our careers of photography. So that was kind of, small world, but too bad that we didn't know that beforehand. But were you part of the Northern Illinois group, Thom? Did you go to them?
Oh yeah. I was born there, I think.
Yeah.
That was, and they're still they've actually grown some in recent
I've heard.
years.
Yeah.
Younger people in that really were enthusiastic and kept it rolling. And as far as I know, they're doing well.
Yeah, it's a really good group of people. It was really strong, and of course that area you can draw from. Like I remember years ago, the Illinois State Convention. Back in the, I'll go back as far as the 80s, I remember having 600 people show up for the convention. It was down in Decatur, Illinois, at the Decadome, as we called it. And we get people from St. Louis and Milwaukee and Chicago and all over the state. And Indianapolis was heavily represented. It was really a huge convention. And then they're gone. The state association closed the door.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind. So. Anyways,
Yeah,
so Thom, what else? So Thom now lives out here in Connecticut. What are you doing out there now?
being retired.
Good
And
call.
I like it. It was not a big adjustment. I just treated every day like a weekend, and it all worked out. Actually, we've been really busy. I really have too much on our calendar. We haven't spent a continuous month in Connecticut, I think, more than once or twice since we moved here. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what I keep hearing. I'm afraid to retire. I don't want to get that busy. I like not being busy, so I'll stay with the job here.
Where are you in Connecticut, Thom?
Milford.
Okay, I lived in Middletown for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. I even know where that is. I'm learning.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's see. We're just a couple minutes after the hour. A couple of things I wanted to mention. This one is very well. It's near and dear to my heart, and I know it is to Cliff. Cliff has been over the last what's it been, Cliff, 5, 6 years or more than that. He's been photographing uh, veterans, Army, all kinds of veterans from
All services.
Vietnam.
Yeah, all services. Yeah.
Yeah, all services. And he had a little bit of a show at Gallery 6 here in Denver last week. And we went there last Friday night, and oh my God, what a turnout. A lot of the veterans themselves. So he's got several, would you have like 60 or 70 images hanging?
Yeah, 70 hanging, right. Out of the 180 that I've done. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they actually invited him to, I guess, are you going to switch out images and put up different ones too?
I don't know. Scott, the gallery owner, thinks that maybe down the road we just do a whole different show and just show another set of veterans. So I'm not sure.
But
Yeah.
you are going to be there for the next First Friday, right? Didn't you decide?
Yeah, for the one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for June
for the
7th.
upcoming
So
First Friday. Yes,
those
sir.
of you in the Denver area, please go see this work. I don't know what the right word is. It pulls on the heartstrings for sure. What was the gentleman's name what was his name?
Oh, Colonel Kleckner, the big one.
Kleckner.
Yeah.
He was hysterical. We laughed because he was standing right next to his picture and he kept pulling people over. Hey, did you see my picture? Did you see my little kid? That was just beautiful work. Absolutely beautiful work. So if you're in the Denver area, you gotta go see Cliff's pictures are just absolutely outstanding. So
Thanks.
What
Thanks.
was the, what was the name of the gallery?
It's
Gallery
Gallery
6,
Yeah. Gallery 6
Denver.
in
and
Denver.
it's on, is it not on 6th Avenue?
No, it's on 8th Avenue.
8th Avenue. Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
much, let's see, it would be I guess we'll go southwest corner of Santa Fe and 8th
Correct. That's right.
Avenue. It's yeah. There's some other artists there one gal has some infrared in it. It's just outstanding. So definitely go in there and see. But Cliff's work's going to be up there. So are they going to keep it up there for the month of June too then?
Through June 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, just through June 8th.
Right.
You know, the biggest reward I got was the lady that was looking at the pictures, and I just walked up. She said, "Are you the photographer?" I said, "Yeah," and she was crying just looking at the
Oh
pictures.
wow. Also,
And that
she
to
wasn't
me-
even related to him. She was just
No,
Oh, that's cool.
and that to me, guys, was better than any loan image I've ever gotten. That's the real reward.
Cliff, we say there's a saying that if we can evoke an emotion in our photography, then we have done our jobs as an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely beats any award we've ever seen from PPA or something like that.
It sure does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's way cool.
Way cool.
Hey, Kevin. Kevin,
Yes.
I enjoyed your presentation the other day on ASP.
Thank
Incredible.
you, Yeti.
Oh my
Appreciate you.
gosh. From before and after. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Very
Yeah,
kind of you.
he's kind of good, Yeti, isn't he?
Oh my gosh. Better than you, John.
Ouch.
Just
Hey,
kidding.
Yeti,
Yeah.
just remember this. I'm hosting this, so I can cut you right out. Be nice
Just
to the
kidding.
host. Two guys
Yeah,
are
it
too
was-
funny.
Man.
It was awesome.
Well, hey, that's the kind of what we want for our shows here. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So we got 25 images, and we're going to go through and let mostly Kevin and excuse me, and Tom talk about it. I'll throw my 2 cents in to give you some help, some feedback and such. But by all means, do not hesitate to ask questions. Open your chat box in this, and Cliff's going to keep an eye on that for us, please. And if there's a question he thinks is pertinent to where we are, and he'll just jump in and ask it. So, you guys have entered your images, and since this isn't a competition and it's not going to jeopardize anything, feel free to talk about your own images if you have questions on it. You don't simply have to sit back and not ask because you don't want anybody to know about it. But that's your call, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen here.
Got it.
And can everybody see my Photoshop?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off with Alien Sunset. Tom, I know landscape's your big thing, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, I love it. Immediate impact. Great depth of field throughout, kind of an F64 school.
Yeah.
Kind of look, and a nice reflection in the water below. I don't really have anything negative to say about it at all. You might experiment with different crops, but even there, I don't see that being much of an issue. It's well done, well balanced, the tonality's all there. I don't have anything negative to say about it.
Kevin, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I feel like this is a like Tom was saying, a really good composition. We have the main subject matter right straight down here, almost in the rule of thirds here, pretty much, and a really cool kind of a triangular shape happening here leading into that, which is quite nice, I think. I know we don't necessarily go over the presentation much as either, but I think the presentation border fits well with this image. The tonality of it, I think, is good, and the soft key line is nice, detached key line. I think it looks good. I love the detail in the rocks. Great time of day for the capture. Absolutely perfect time of day for this.
Yeah, and a lot of times we hear you get that bright sunlight on rocks. Ooh, that's a no-no. This is still early enough in the morning, probably, or later enough in the afternoon, but it is a little bit of a challenge for the photographer, I'm sure, to capture the highlights on the rocks and to not lose the details and the shadows. But they've done an awesome job at giving us all that detail throughout. We've got a nice little kind of a pyramid here that walks us through. The scene gives us a point of focus. The reflection is quite nice. I don't think you need to have, I think reflections are very strong in themselves. I don't think you necessarily have to get the exact replica or the reflection of the mountain peak in there, the hill, whatever, to make it a good reflection. I think this typifies that a good reflection just has to have some content, and obviously you can see what it is, so that tells the story real well there. Just looking at the sky, that's always hard to get, because we get a lot of times we've got an awful lot of texture going on in the rocks, and then you have all the sky going on as well, so you've got an awful lot of movement and texture and such. But I think it was just handled very nicely throughout. And as Kevin mentioned, the mat was a great choice presentation, since we do have to use those for PPA competitions.
Yeah, one other
Yeah.
thing, Jeff, I'll add. Just if you want to get a little bit nitpicky, keep an eye on your edge elements here, like this top right corner here, that little cloud creeping in
Yeah.
on the corner there. Maybe clean that up a little bit. These are super picky things, guys, but they matter, and even this little white one over here, top left as well, potentially. That's so picky, but if in competition, those little things can matter.
Well, back in the day when it was points, little stuff like that would be a matter of, 2-3 points that could get you up there higher in the 90s and upper 90s or whatever.
Sure.
Now, since they're not doing points, it doesn't seem to be that, but still, those are things judges look for as well. And the trick that I like to do, I won't do it here, is just flip your image in Photoshop, just flip it upside down and see what catches your eye, see what stands out, and then ask yourself, is this important to my image? Do I need to keep this to tell the story, or is it taking away from the story? And mostly you run your eye around that edge of your image and look for those little intrusions. You can maybe get a branch that comes in there, or you might get like a branch with one little leaf that's brighter than the rest of it. Just little things like that. Pull an eye out, and we'll just, again, it's asking the question, does this help the story? Does this help tell my story, my composition? And if not, it can work against you. So keep that in mind.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Christine asked, would you recommend a more blurred sky or clouds to bring focus back to the rocks?
Tom, what do you think of that?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, this is a traditional landscape photography called F64 for a reason. It should have depth of field throughout, and it's got perfect depth of field. To throw the clouds out, I think would be distracting. Now, that said, occasionally you can take the sky when there's a lot of movement in the clouds at a long exposure, you get something neat going on that way. But as it stands, no, I wouldn't do that personally.
Any thoughts, Kevin, on that?
That would have been what I would have said too. Maybe a long exposure could give another element of intrigue to it potentially, but I quite like the way these clouds look. They work well with the texture throughout the image. It almost looks like this image could potentially even be focus stacked. I mean, it's so sharp throughout. Pretty good. Pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good.
Yep.
No, you know, what we call it here is more better.
More better.
More better.
Let's talk about a life of consequence. If I can get it to open here. Oh, for crying out loud. This is the stupid stuff that just happens. All you gotta do is double click on it, opens. There we go. All right, Tom, jump in, man. What do you think?
Sure. Well done. Well done. I like the square crop. An authentic expression. Looks like he's mildly amused and sincerely so. It doesn't look fake. Well done. If I had any thoughts about technical thoughts, it would be two things really. The specular highlights. Let's see if I can use this pen tool you taught me about. Apparently, I cannot. But specular highlights, you know what I mean? On forehead, the bridge of the nose, the cheeks, those are just approaching being blown out. I like to see those. They're not blown out, but they're approaching that. I think it could stand to be printed down a little bit, reduced in brightness. That's one thought. And then the kicker light on the hair on the shadow side, on the right side.
Over here?
Kicker light on the jawline is pretty good. It's about stop below what it is on the right, but that hair is so bright. I think that's distracting as well. I want to burn that in a little bit, or maybe have goboed that rim light, that kicker light, something like that. And then maybe the vignetting is there. I'm not sure it's needed to be quite so heavy, just a modest amount of it. It's not quite tunnel vision yet, but a little less vignetting I think would work. Overall, nevertheless, I think it's a very well done portrait and something both the subject would be pleased with and his family or whomever was that knew him.
Absolutely. Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah. Good eye, Tom. I didn't even actually notice that vignette until you pointed it out. And maybe it is a little heavy, but I guess because I didn't notice it, it didn't really jump out at me. The things you pointed out about the hair for sure over here, pretty bright. I guess that's probably pretty difficult to work with, with white and silver hair like that. I'm most impressed with the detail kept in the jacket and the shirt, which is great. I'm not a portrait photographer, but this image really speaks to me. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Cliff is doing a little bit, somewhat. And I mean,
Yeah, really, I think it has some great dimension to it. I really can feel the roundness of the face. The lighting is done very nicely. See, and I think that's the difference we get in this digital judging, because you guys are talking about the hair. The hair I'm seeing is not blown out.
Okay.
These highlights in the face are not. I mean, they're specular highlights, which are going to have no detail in some of the areas, like this little fine area on the forehead here and here is going to be bright, but not have detail. And those we call those specular highlights. So those are okay. So when you get a whole big area, but again, from what I'm seeing, it looks fine. And of course, I like this because it reminds me a lot of what my dad used to do and how I learned. So this right off the bat just really speaks to me. And again, I think what we're trying to do here is to give that good feedback. But I think bottom line is, what's the story that we're trying to sell? What's the premise of the image and the connection with the photographer, the subject, and then anybody who looks at the photograph. And I think it's done extremely well for that reason right there. So
we have a question from Christine. She says, thoughts on the presentation?
Yeah, I'm thinking I might have chosen. I mean, for a fine art piece, I think this matte is good. When you go, again, we're talking what happens in PPA competition, I would have maybe started with this color and then just maybe lightened it or darkened it just a little bit so it wasn't But it is catching an eye. Tom, you want to add to that?
No, I agree almost precisely with that. With a fine art mat, you probably want it a little bit wider. For PPA competition mat, yeah, just as you're saying, a little in the neutral gray with maybe just a hint of color, but not much, desaturated, if anything, and a little bit darker.
Yeah, that's the thing I've heard many times, because I like to do a lot of images with black and white and a white mat, more of a fine art look, and not a white, but just a little bit off white so it doesn't get blown out. And even at that, I'll hear judges say, "Oh, I wish it would have been a mat more in the key of that." So, it's the kind of thing. It's I laugh because all the years we've been doing this, I don't think you can ever do a mat that's right for 5 judges. It just doesn't happen. So,
Right.
And
I think the big thing, a mat and a presentation should call as little attention to itself as possible.
yeah,
The less you notice it, the better.
yeah. Well,
And-
that's
and Kev-
therein lies the argument. So, yeah.
And Kevin, the reason it looks like mine is it is.
Well, there you go.
Too
Good job.
funny. Good job. All right, let's see what we have next here, gang. Balanced morning. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Oh, you're gonna lead with me? Okay, can you move that up a little bit in frame? Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me get my annotate tool here. There we go. I like the idea of the starburst here on this balanced rock down here where the sun is. So F22 probably-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
To get that. I'm not feeling the focus that I'd want to be feeling in this foreground tree, however. And I would like a little more detail probably in the shadow side of this rock, this whole area over here. That said, I do love the leading lines and the composition's very pretty. I like this little channel that's kind of created through here, this little S sweeping curve. That's really well seen. Yeah, I don't have much more to add other than that, guys.
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree almost entirely with Kevin on all his points. And I do feel like the very foreground or the edges of the foreground on either side. Well, I should get my pen here. I figured out where it was.
Good.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Where'd it go? I was all set here. Yeah, I'm not gonna screw around with that. Yeah, I feel like just on the bottom right, bottom left, it feels underexposed to me. It needs to be dark and it should be dark, but it just feels underexposed in these areas a little bit. And then as Kevin mentioned, we lost some detail in the shadows, which is not always important, but in a straight ahead landscape, I think it is to get all the tonality from absolute black to absolute white. And that's the only thing that's missing for me. And I have the same concerns that Kevin did.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys. I think all that was said is pretty much how I look at it as well. I do like that we do have the darkness down in these corners, so it's acting like a vignette and allows this rock to stand out, creates some depth in the scene, and the starburst is nice. And I go back and forth. I like this old tree here, but these branches are pulling my attention and they point out of the scene. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I just haven't figured it out yet, but I think it seems to me like the point of focus is this rock and these trees are kind of fighting it for attention. I don't know. I mean, I'm suggesting maybe we cut them off. Next time you go out, bring a little soft. No, don't do that. I'm kidding. I've seen people do that. Please don't do that. But you can remove those and such. I don't know. Just you might try it and see, because I think it seems to me your rock is probably the primary focal point, and these trees, while they're handled pretty well, they are pulling us up out of the scene. That's my thoughts on that one there. So, all right.
Yeah, I did have the thought that maybe a camera position about 2 or 3 steps to the right would be useful, but having no idea exactly where that is, that might have put you in a 500-foot deep relief.
It might have been their
Jeff?
last picture.
Jeff,
Yeah.
what about a square crop that's basically here?
Well, we can do that. Oh, I moved your, hang on.
I got it. I cleared it.
So about here?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Interesting.
You pull it out just a touch to the left.
Yep. All the way to that tree branch, maybe even almost. Yeah, like that.
Should we include that edge of that rock there and then just clip those tree branches?
Yeah, maybe. I
like
mean,
it.
look at where look at where the sunburst lands now. It's like it's in a really good power position.
Yeah, it's almost on that rule of thirds there.
Almost. Yeah.
Certainly
Looks
helps.
good to me this way.
Maybe even pull the top down just a little bit just to get, when you crop something and it's real tight like this, if you get it done just right, it's really powerful. It's really strong because it's almost like you're force fitting this rock into this small mold. But if it's done right, it's very powerful. It just makes that rock seem even more imposing or bigger, stuff like that. So just a thought.
Yep.
All right. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Day's Reluctant End. Kevin, I'll let you go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in again, huh? Okay.
I suppose I could start if you wanted, but
Yeah. No, I got it. I'm good. I'm trying to figure out the Jeff, are you seeing noise in the sky up in here? Like
yeah,
banding?
yeah,
Okay.
there's definitely some banding up in
Okay.
here.
Just wanted to make sure that that wasn't a zoom thing. And the sky looks a little almost like a teal. It's a very unique color. I kind of like I can't decide if I like it or not, but I think I do actually. The foreground element here, this butte is beautifully lit, and I love the hard shadow that's linear across it, being created by another butte somewhere, likely, or just the horizon.
Right.
I think the composition's good, and I like the cropping choice of it, and I think the presentation is nicely handled as well. But yeah, definitely go in and add a little bit of noise to this image or something to eliminate that banding. It doesn't take much. In Photoshop, you can do like a 0.5 noise, will
Right.
usually tackle that banding.
Yeah, because when I look at it, I'm seeing something here. I'm seeing something here. I'm
It'll
seeing
get
a
it.
line right
Just a
there.
little bit of noise will get it.
Seeing
And you
that.
won't even see the noise. It just helps that banding go away.
It just kind of blends it all together, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Tom? Want to add?
Yep, I agree entirely. I mean, that's, I guess, the first place I would have come to is that sky in the upper left and the issues you pointed out with it. In addition, there's just a little bit of, let's see, will this work? Hey, look at that. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yay.
I did it. There is just a little bit of halo right over the top of that ridge
Yeah.
that isn't appearing either over the peaks or over the that left shoulder, or excuse me, right shoulder, camera right shoulder. It could be a naturally occurring phenomenon. However, and speaking for PPA kinds of style judging, that would nail you a little bit. It looks as though it had been selected and held back from a darkening of the sky. And if you go to darken that sky, you will want to be very careful with that and make sure that no halated line like that appears. And that's the only thing I have to add to your discussion.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen quite a bit in not just competition, but in general of landscape photography. And anytime you take in digital photography and you make that sky darker, and I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying watch for this, you will get almost always some sort of a line, a lighter line right along the horizon. And there's an easy way to fix that with your clone tool and using the darken mode. So it's easy to do it, and don't not darken your sky because of that line. Definitely do it because it does give impact. It gives you that more dramatic feel. Like this is absolutely stunning, I think, with the lighting low lighting. It's just before sunset, I'm guessing. Composition is really strong. We get long, narrow composition, but to get these long buttes and these two peaks that are just really, really beautiful storytelling here and bringing us into this scene. But yeah, that sky can, man, that can knock you right down into the don't submit again kind of category because of that. So definitely work on that. And the other thing too that, you know, because we're doing this, by all means, reach out to one of us, to Rick or I, and ask if you need to know how to get rid of those things. This isn't just for the show to rate you, or so to speak. We want to help. We want to help because this problem happens in a lot of images and there's ways to get rid of it. So please reach out.
We have two questions.
Shoot.
One of them is maybe turn this to black and white.
Sure.
Sure.
It will emphasize the sky, so you still have to work on that. But I've just flipped it. Just all I did was use the black and white thing in Photoshop, and I'm just moving the sliders to kind of emphasize some of the colors and, you know, pull out some of the best. We don't want to lose the detail in the you can make that sky like I love my Ansel Adams-ish skies. Man, look, you make that even darker. Again, we're not really eliminating that. That's a little too dark there, but now you can make those highlights of the sun across the buttes and across the mountain peaks really stand out even more. It also, I kind of get the feeling this might be a large, what I want to say, a small crop on a larger file, because I'm just getting that feel that while I see sharpness into the snow peaks, the stuff, the butte in front just doesn't seem as sharp. I kind of have that feeling because I've done this many times where we take an image and then we crop out a small section of it and enlarge it. Well, that's just fine. Just watch for those things. And you can see over on the left as I push those colors, what it's done to the sky there on the left. So that kind of stuff happens.
That's when banding occurs most, is when you're
Yeah,
pushing
I'm going to
things.
push it extremely so you can see what happens. But
Yeah.
be aware of, look for this there. Look for that kind of stuff. I'm exaggerating it. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. Don't get me wrong, because you can push any image to this extent, but you got to look for that kind of stuff, especially if you're going into competition, because the judges have been trained. They've been around for a while. We're all a bunch of old timers, and they'll pick up that kind of stuff. So know that.
The second question, and you got 30 seconds. Do you feel that the rocks on the bottom left pull your eye away from the main subject?
Yes, I was actually about to mention that. It might serve to crop in maybe 15-20% from the left-hand side. It's almost a secondary subject, and I think it would just be an accent if we. Oh, I don't know if I come that far, but yes, in there. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think the balance is nice over there on the left,
I do like the balance, yeah.
but maybe it was a little much actually now that I saw that crop. So yeah, that's a good call.
Well, you could easily go in and just like do a little, my favorite, burning and dodging. I'm gonna
The 30 seconds
exaggerate
is up.
this.
Yes.
What's that? Oops, wrong button here. So I've just taken a curves layer and made it dark, and then all I'm gonna do is brush in and really drop that down quite a bit. And it's sloppy because I'm getting the map, but you can see that we still have that highlighted area, and yet it doesn't pull your eye over there as much.
Time.
That'd be nice to see the whole image.
In terms of the sky, and I wasn't maybe paying attention to, as to what you would do with it, darkening it for sure. But I think the easier way to not get all those artifacts I'm using
Yeah,
stream curves on, I think replacing it, using what was over here, and just putting some noise in and some and that tonality, and just replacing the sky with it. Being very careful that there aren't these lines. And again, you mentioned it, a good way to get rid of them with the clone tool in darker color mode.
Right.
That works for sharpening too. So again, if you want to try some sharpening on the foreground bluff or mesa, that might be a good idea. But often, if you do too much, it'll give you the same artifacts, and that could ruin it. So it needs to be done carefully. I think, that's not a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. I mean, this is such an elegant print, and time of day.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely worth it. It's such a beautiful scene, that it's worth playing with it and just going in. And you can do sharpening on local areas like this butte and this butte. The mountain himself and the snow don't seem to need sharpening, but you don't want to sharpen the sky. And nowadays you can cut out the sky, and because it's just a solid color, you could drop in a solid gradient back there or something instead. And really eliminate some of those all those textures that we're seeing back there. So, all right, good work.
Could I go off book here for a second? Is that Terry Joe Taschke there?
It is.
Hi, Terry. I haven't seen you at least a decade, so good to see you.
She's one of ours now, Tom.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
hi, Tom. Yes, so nice to see you too. And of course, Jeff here,
yeah.
which I know he photographed our daughter's wedding out in
Yeah.
Vail. Yeah, so good to see you, Tom.
And you're in Colorado now.
Yes, I love it. And
Oh, I do too. I do too. Spent a lot of time there as a kid. And still still visit my brother there whenever I can.
Where's he at, Tom?
Where is he?
He's he always says Bailey. It's an Bailey address, but it's probably about almost 20 miles from Bailey up it's where Romer's Ranch is. I don't know if you're
Oh,
aware of
wow. That's a very secluded area.
that. Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Well, yeah, I was gonna send him down to forgive me, I forgot his name already here. Down to Cliff's show of veterans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Studio
that'd be
6.
great.
Gallery 6 is the name of
Yep, I got that. I'm gonna mention that to him. He's pretty reclusive. I don't know if he'll be there, but I'll encourage it. Does your show include Vietnam vets?
Yeah, the majority are Vietnam vets, actually, just by nature of
Yeah.
the age group. Yeah.
Okay. Next image. You'll love the title in this one. Do you have any hot sauce? Let me enlarge this just to get a good, a more better view here. There we go. Kevin, you want to jump into this one?
Sure. I love the title.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And the interaction here between these two birds, this one back here kind of in the back looking on like, you took my dinner, man. Why'd you do that? Kind of a bit of a bullseye composition here. I might want to see that framed a little differently, perhaps. Looks like the tonal range is handled well. Aside from the little bit of color, it's darn near monochromatic almost.
Sure.
And I like the depth of field. The aperture choice was nice to get these grasses in the back kind of blurred out a little bit. There's a little bit much happening in the foreground here for me that keeps pulling my eye down to this section here. I'm not really sure how you could maybe crop into like that, but that's pretty tight to that bottom bird. Yeah, I don't know what else more to say about this. Little hot in here probably too on these white feathers. Difficult exposure, I would say. So knowing that, it's probably handled quite well as far as the exposure is concerned. Tom, what do you got?
Well, yeah, I largely agree. And in terms of the exposure, and you're right, it's going to be hard to handle. Any adjustments are going to have to be local adjustments, perhaps to the just the birds themselves, bring them down a little bit, particularly their head, white feathers. But it's a wonderful story and a legitimate natural capture, and I like the way it's not overworked or not over dramatized. There's plenty of drama in the story there. Even the secondary bird is definitely resentful. His
Great expression.
His feathers are literally ruffled here along the front edge. I think he's feeling a little put out, and it's a great story. My only other thought is maybe just to add a little bit of saturation. I just said I liked it because it wasn't over processed, but maybe just a little more saturation to bring up the green and the gray blue of the bird's wings. Might give it a little more impact, but it's a great story.
Well, let me ask you guys this one, especially Tom, since you've judged for so many years. In an image like this, like, and you mentioned you talked about the grasses sticking up out of the water. Not that you really want to take the time to eliminate them, because where do you draw the line? But do you kind of get to where this is one of those where you ask that question, is this competition worthy or not?
Hmm.
Those grasses take a
Yeah.
lot of the attention.
There's there's always that, and you're dealing with 5 judges, and it's a matter of which 5 judges you get.
True.
Despite the fact that I do all things Photoshop, I really love legitimate, natural, almost straight out of the camera feeling to some captures, and I think this is one of them, particularly in nature and wildlife. I love to see this. I like the painted birds and the dramatic post-production, but I also like this very much, and I think. Thankfully, on PPA judging, there's a little more recognition of that than there was just a few years ago. And
Agreed.
they've added a photojournalistic class with a reportage category just for such things. And just such a thing could be entered in reportage with a limited amount of post-processing that you can do. All you can do is adjust color, or not adjust color and contrast a little bit. That's all you're allowed to do.
Okay.
But
That's kind of what I was thinking, is
tough
that maybe
question. Again, it depends on what judges you get. If you got me, you'd be okay. So
that therein lies the problem. The damn judges.
damn judges. Yeah.
All right, we have next Dream of the Aspen. Tom, what's your thoughts? Let me just give it a little larger here.
No, the first blush, yeah, a lot of impact and a lot of contrast and a pretty intense saturation of colors. And it has a dreamy quality, but I have the feeling it's kind of on balance. It's either a little too dreamy or not dreamy enough. So yeah, the impact for me is at this point out of focus instead of dreamy. So I think a little more post-production probably would add to the impact, and maybe a little less saturation in the foreground green would be helpful.
Okay, Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm seeing that too, where he was pointing out this section of green here is pretty darn strong. My eye keeps going down there when we really want it right in here. That's where we want the eye to be. What I really like about this though is it's both happy and spooky all at once.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I'm
kind
getting
of
to.
crazy because you have all this dark stuff happening back here. I'd almost like to see this like darkened way down even. Just to like bring the blacks way down and just make this section really pop a little bit more. I like the intentional camera movement. I'm assuming that's what created this, for the most part anyway.
Yeah, right.
And it feels like the composition is a little, I might want this gone right here,
Okay.
but I'm not sure because the more I look at it, the more it does kind of feel like it adds some balance. And then the matte choices, it's a little bold, I think. A little bit bold. I might remove the texture from this presentation, I think, on the matte. It feels to compete.
Okay, good stuff. I'm looking at this and I see, because I kind of like this tree on the left,
Yeah.
kind of matching some of the middle stuff. So maybe if one or two of the trees on the right side were a little bit lightened, it might keep that balance across the scene. And I like that comment you mentioned about making those alleys in there, making those a little bit darker to bring up a little bit of, I don't know, where does the ogre live down that trail?
Yeah.
All right, very cool, very cool. So, whoops, gotta put that away. Put it away. There we go. We have fall morning. Large it just a little for you there. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, right when it pops up, it has pretty good impact. It's a lovely scene, of course, beautiful time of day. I like the way the clouds are kind of encroaching on that top peak there a little bit to give a little sense of moodiness up top there, like a storm has just passed or is approaching, one of the two. This is one of those images where there is no subject. The whole frame is really the subject matter, I think. And I am liking this entire kind of path that kind of meanders back and leads you back up here to this peak here. That's a nice little path. And if that be the case, you could probably lose some of the stuff over on the left, potentially. But I do like the pano crop choice on it quite a bit. And I think the sky works pretty well with it. You could potentially darken some of these clouds down a little bit, maybe. And yeah, those are my thoughts on this. The presentation could maybe be a little bit less black also. More of a charcoal, I think.
Tom, you want to add to that?
Sure. Yep. Well, start with the presentation. Yeah, I agree. The full-on black is my solution to a matte for almost anything is slate gray.
Yeah.
People tease me about that, but I think slate gray is almost always appropriate.
It works. It works.
Yeah, the black is just a little too bold, and we lose the gentleness of this beautiful scene. And as Kevin pointed out, there's no real center of interest, but there is the movement through the image of that pathway going back. We can't help but move in from the bottom left and back through the mountains. That said, I would love to see the mountains a little brighter, a little bit of dodging here in the in the mountains. You don't want to lose that aerial perspective, that kind of foggy feel to it, but just a little brighter to compete a little bit more with the foreground, with the vivid foreground. That's my only thoughts. Cropping it maybe, but I kind of like the Slim Jim look of it as it is.
Well, I haven't heard that term in a long time.
Slim Jim.
My dad used to say that. Slim Jim. No, I'm in full agreement with what you guys are seeing. And of course, as I sit and look at it, there's a couple of things that really catch my eye that I think I would address as this bush and this little piece right here. It's one of those things that the minute you see them, you don't unsee them.
Yeah, I saw that tree that you just circled up top there.
Yeah, as minor as they are, it pulls your eye there unnecessarily. And I can definitely see. I would take, okay, so let's create a little bit more of a path. And I would take this whole area here and just darken it just a little bit. Matter of fact, you see the density, the darkness of this area here. I'd make this whole quadrant just a little deeper so that this trail kind of stands out a little bit more and takes us up into the hills. And then also too, these white parts of the clouds are pulling attention. I think this whole sky could be deepened a little bit, pull those whites down because it's get some blownouts here that are pulling attention. But I think if the whole sky was deepened just a little bit, you'd have a little bit more of a late afternoon, almost a stormy feeling. And it's, these mountains are in shadow from these clouds. And I think that would just kind of address that even more. Because if you lighten the mountain, you might get not a real look to it. Because you have enough brightness down here. But I think if the sky was darkened a little bit than this, without the darkening the mountains, that would let them be that stormy kind of late afternoon feeling. I do like this long panel feeling like this is about a 3-to-1 ratio. And I agree with the matte. I think if the matte was in a, what'd you call it? What was your gray, Tom?
Slate gray.
Slate gray. That's a winner every time. All right, good stuff, guys. Okay, so we have guiding light. Go a little smaller to get the whole mat in there. Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. Great story. I mean, it's a tough enough thing to capture the Milky Way than to have the the light of the lighthouse not be totally blown out. But I think that this might cause a little bit of an issue. I'm glad that there's some kind of direction of the light a little bit, but this might be a little bit of an issue for some judges. I mean, it is dark and it is a lighthouse. You're going to have that look, but maybe if there was a little more fanning of the light rays, could help explain that a little bit more. And the Milky Way is there, but I would even maybe have lightened it just a tiny bit more to make it stand out. And just from past experience in Milky Way pictures and judging, you'll get judges who haven't seen it and they won't ever catch that. They won't notice that there's something back here that is supposed to draw our eye in the elegance and the beauty of the Milky Way. So I would do something to maybe pull that out just a little bit more. But I do like that you got a light in the house, the fence is showing a little bit. I do feel like obviously the camera is pointing up, so I maybe would correct for that little bit. You can see the house is kind of falling this direction just a little bit. Minor things, but I think if the house was straight, it would have more of it would just take that off of the judge's plate to talk about. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good deal of impact coming around. Again, I'd be a slaty or gray.
Slaty. There's another word for us,
You
slaty.
know, this-
Lady-er, yeah.
Yeah, this one really is fine. It's not at all distracting. My first concern was this kind of posterization. Oh, here, let me get my pencil. This posterization right along this transition edge between the lighter sky and the blacker sky. And I'm going to remove that so you can see it.
I got you.
Go away. I just hit the class stat. Yeah, okay. Thank you. And there's a little bit of posterization in there, like it's been brought down too much or something, especially right down in here. I think that needs to be evened out, the transition edge between this lighter area and the darker area. And as Jeff mentioned, maybe bringing up the central part of the Milky Way, I think would be additive. And then the crop, I think it's not on the third, it's not in the center. I think it could be in the center and a square crop. I also think, you know, the rule of thirds is kind of the Cub Scout merit badge of composition. It always works. It's a very good rule, but we can use it against itself sometimes. So another crop might be to a little more extreme. You could bring it in right to the middle like that, and then try pulling it way in from the right. No, excuse me, from camera right for that. Bring the other side edge way in.
Almost to that fence line, I think he's meaning, yeah.
Yeah, even further. Bring it way out here. Even a little further. Yeah. So to bring it out of the third and create a little tension by bringing it out of the third. You can use the third, get off the third just a little bit. It creates a little bit of tension, a little more mystery. That's just one thought. I'm not sure. I think you have to play with the crop until you got it just right, but maybe create some tension with that way. And but my principal concern technically though would be that left-hand margin there, and cleaning that up a little bit. It's a cool photograph though.
Kevin, anything you want to add?
No, I think you guys have covered it well.
One thing that catches my eye, I'm just wondering of white balance. I'm thinking that this still looks like it might be a warm or something. Try a tungsten white balance on a sky like this. There's a lot of greens in there that while they do exist, try your white balance on tungsten, you'll get more blacks and some of the stars will have a little bit more prominence against that black sky instead of the greenish cast to it. Try that. See what you think. Okay. Oops. We have hangover plumage. Now, I'm not sure if and the maker can tell us or not, but hangover meaning a lot of extra plumage, or has this bird wandered into the wine bar last night? I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm trying to understand the word. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's the bar. He's disheveled from the night before. Looks very disheveled. I like the impact and I like the title quite a bit. You know, the initial impact is there. I think the composition is well handled. you know, he's like Tom was saying in the last one, he is right in the strong point of this in this rule thirds here, basically on the right-hand third.
Right.
Lovely detail. Look at all that detail on the feathers. I mean, it's pretty incredible, actually. Really nicely done. A few of the technical issues that are kind of I'm seeing are some of these really bright whites on the top of the head here. And then this whole section of, obviously that's, you could maybe use AI to eliminate that, to fill in those areas, or content aware I don't think would do it. But AI might be able to get it. If you're working small areas, you could, that would be one of the areas that I would maybe embrace AI. I don't love it that much, but I embrace it for some of that stuff. And it's interesting, this whole area of green that's kind of splitting the image here is an interesting thing. We wouldn't want to crop too much in because then he's too close to the edge now. If you did that to his beak, it's not giving him enough room to look. So it's from a technical capture standpoint, the focus is sharp. It's all there. The exposure could use a little bit of work, but the environment is, you're battling that environment, which is difficult that he's in.
Something like that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because all this green over here on the left, I realize it's just the natural sunlight hitting that slope there behind him. It's just very bright, and little things like this bottom corner that are just asking for, look at me down here, you know, kind of stuff like that. And these green foliage here, if they were darker green, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but the fact that they're so bright, I mean, this is like key lime pie here, and they're just covering the legs and the bottom of the bird, and even this guy is asking for a lot of attention, and it's really a beautiful image of the bird, but it's pulling a lot of your attention away from it. So little things like that, I maybe would even play down. I don't mind these logs back here, this green, but I would, you know, tone those down a little bit. Maybe these highlights in these logs here, I would tone those down just a little bit. But man, look at that nice, great pose on this curved branch, standing on the edge of a little bit of action, the feet digging in, the nails digging in for balance. So I got a good idea, but just a little fine tuning, I think, might make it, as we say, a little more better. Tom, you want to add anything more to this?
No, I think you've said it all, you and Kevin. I think you got it.
How about the matte color? I know it looks like they're trying to match bird color, but because of all the bright green yellow on the left here, that's a lot of contrast difference that's asking for attention too.
Yeah, sure. And in this case, it might a much lighter map might be useful. And I think a good deal of the bird could be printed down quite a ways before you lost that beautiful detail that's been maintained in the feathers. And then, as you said, about a lot of places could be burned in. In addition to the crop, a lot of areas could be burned in very carefully, particularly in all this yellow green on the left. And you want to make sure it doesn't look gray and blotchy and call attention to itself for having been burnt in.
So a couple of comments were made. I'm guessing this is the maker of this one. The yellow on the left is brush out of depth of field. Yeah, that's true. You know, maybe another thought there too, John, is you could maybe have taken this area. Let me get my little pen tool back here, and try and take some of this yellow green out of it, maybe make it into a deeper green, or maybe a lesser color, maybe more in the tone. This is more of a neutral, and these brown areas up here. If this whole area was a little more neutral, I think that might play it down a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah, Kevin nailed the intent of the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disheveled is
Disheveled.
definitely the word, disheveled.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like a natural plumage on this bird. They're usually a little more smooth and just kind of, it's almost like hair feathers kind of a thing, not a plumage. Okay.
Somebody else asked, you don't have much time. What about a portrait close-up? You got 30 seconds.
You mean a cropping of this, Larry? Is that what you're asking? A cropping?
Hmm.
Yeah, this would work. We still have a lot of greens there. Asking attention, the intensity of this green back here. This definitely pulls us into the bird. I'd love to see just a little bit more, a little more space this way. Maybe this border being like out here, so we get a little more. He's kind of his nose, his beak's kind of close there. I don't mind the top and the bottom of the side, but again, we still have this yellow here in these sticks. And even this green, I would maybe tone the intensity of that green down just a little bit so the bird really stands out from there. Is that kind of what you were thinking, Larry? Okay.
Yeah, or even a crop that's just below where the feathers drop down from his chin.
Trying to get back to the crop. Well, maybe not. So even tighter.
Even
Oh,
tighter.
you're talking like a head and shoulders.
Yeah, just the head and shoulder. Yeah, right up, maybe half of what you've got there now.
Well, let's just see.
Yeah.
Something more like that?
Yeah, or maybe a little more on the backside, but yeah, that's
Yeah. I personally, unless you're doing something like this on a bird, I'd like to see more. I like to see more of the bird. And this isn't bad. This is unique and different, but I like to see more of the bird if you're going to go with a bird picture.
yep, 10-4.
That's just my, what do I know?
Well, that's good that you like to see more of the bird with a bird picture rather than with an elephant picture, Jeff.
I'm so glad we
So
got this recorded.
I'm happy to hear that.
Oh, for crying out loud. Let's do one more, then we'll take a quick break here. So we have lone bird.
This is an elephant, right?
Lone bird. Lone bird? Unless the maker is making this, trying to set the pace that this is in our minds as judges, this is a lone collection image. I've seen that done before. Tom, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, and if that were the case, too, I wouldn't do that for judging. LOAN rather than,
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah.
yeah, you'll annoy somebody. Yeah, it's so pastel, and these two birds, great depth of field, holding everything back for and after the birds. Yet it's appropriately done. I don't see any evidence of too much trickery. The legs in the shadows are sharp where they hit the ground. I think the whole thing needs to come down. I realize I want to hold that pastel quality, but it looks like the necks of each bird are very close to being without texture at all, just a little bit too bright. And somehow I'd like to see eyes in here, and maybe I don't know these birds and I can't tell, but if those could be somehow brought up. Yeah, he's got a lot of
Yeah,
eyes.
there's definitely eyes here showing these are terns, these birds. And you can definitely see the eyes. And I think, yeah, if the eyes were worked up just a little bit more,
Yeah.
that would really pull attention in there quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. And then just a little more feather detail in the necks, if that's possible, if that information is in the file.
Probably is. It looks like it's close, but yeah, definitely. Because I mean, those feathers are very fine hair kind of a feather. So there's very little detail, but yeah, I think it's close. It looks like it's close to get just something there. I mean, it's kind of the same you can see across the backs. It's just a little bit there on that. I love the interplay between these birds. I mean, this is one of the things I like to do is to go down to the Florida beach and lay down and let these birds crawl around you. And they have these conversations. They sit there and talk to each other and they look face to face. And it's just such a great story. It's such a very, very true to this guy's nature that I love this quite a bit. I think the whole color scheme, the matte, the background, everything is very well done. There's even a little bit of a feeling of a softness in the foreground here that could be just, obviously just a lack of sharpness, but I think it gets for a nice little vignette in there. And again, you get this great conversation between these two birds. I think there's the story right there. Kevin, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think you guys have covered it well, and I'm seeing like some of the things that Tom was pointing out with the necks of the birds and the lack of detail in there for sure. And I would like to see the eyes come up a little bit, but they do need to remain. It's almost like you need like a little, not a catch light, but just a little brighter in there. I'm loving the bottom part of this frame where the sand is. It's nice and soft down there below their feet, and the way the shadows are ripply.
Yeah.
It's really lovely. My concerns with if you could zoom back out, Jeff,
Out.
would be
Oops. Like that.
that's good right there. It's good. These little areas back here kind of compete for me. They could easily be cloned out, I think. Some of these darker areas are just kind of compete. But I like the composition. It is kind of a bullseye composition straight down between these two, almost like they're, playing tennis.
Yeah. That's good.
And I like that, actually. I think it works well for this particular image. But yeah, some of the other issues that I think Tom and you were mentioning could be addressed easily. I think the detail is there. Just work with that, with the whites a little bit, and it's there.
It's funny how you mentioned, I didn't really notice those black spots, especially the one on the left over there in the background. But the minute you point them out,
Yes.
you can't unsee
If
those.
you zoom it way out, Jeff, to where it's small, you can really see them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
See
see that? Yeah. And if you go way down here, you can really see. Okay, we're not helping much here. Sorry, Maker. Okay, we like to have a little fun at your expense. Let's now look at, this one is called On Display. Tom, what do you think?
The immediate impact is great, and that bird just swirling and making kind of almost a Fibonacci curve there. It's wonderful. My concern is there's feels like something around him, something surrounding the bird, and it doesn't feel like motion blurred. There's no feathers there. In the background, and particularly on the front side of the bird, right down his neck from the beak to the feels like maybe some dodging or something that's just not quite right in there, and I'm not certain what it is, but it feels like there's a kind of a cloud around the bird. The bird itself is miraculous, sharp throughout, wonderful feather detail, right on exposure, I believe. I think the background needs some work.
Kevin?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more, actually. When this image popped up, my first things that I saw were what Tom was pointing out, which is like this area right in here, this cloudy area. It feels almost like something's just very odd about this whole section of the image over here to me. And then the exposure of the background is just not balancing. So I'm not sure. I'm not really understanding what's happening in this print here. The exposure on the bird is nice, and the bird itself is really beautiful. And I love that green, like right around the eye. That's really nice element of. Is this? I can't remember if this is an egret or a type of a heron. But yeah, I'm struggling with this one a little bit.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you guys too. I think this is a mating dance that the females do. They get into their nests and they sprout all their little airy feathers so that the males will pay attention. I kind of get the feeling, and I'll hesitate a little bit because I've been to a rookery when it's been bright sunlight shining through there, and it's tough because, man, you just blow out these highlights real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's happened. They've tried to recover those, but I'm also kind of getting the feeling that maybe a flash was used by how the position of the shadows on the which is not a bad thing, But I think that's where we're getting it. And I'm just wondering, you guys think the white balance is off on this maybe? Could that be it? Do you have kind of an off color feeling to it?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't have any problem with the bird.
And it might be, I'm feeling it might be just a hair dark too, which could make it kind of ruddy,
Mm.
muddy looking.
Yeah.
mhm.
Claire,
Yeah, the
Christine,
tail feathers and stuff, yeah, I could see that might be an issue in terms of color balance.
Christine asked about why don't you just crop out the tree?
Yeah, we can play with that. Let me just see. I was gonna go for a different white balance. Yeah, maybe a little too far, but I'm just wondering. I think it's maybe a little too red in there. Yeah, we could easily just clip the tree like this. I think we're getting a little better story.
Yep.
Because that tree knows a major element in this in the forest, the field there, the nest, but is it necessary to this story?
It's not.
Yeah, it really is. You could almost bring this
It's
into
not necessary at
square.
all. Now that I'm seeing it like this.
Yeah, and you could almost bring this into a square,
Yep.
just a hair off center, and it would really
Mhm.
play up. Because I mean, this is a phenomenal curve right here, like you're talking about. Both you guys mentioned this curve and the whole game and all these little, I forget what they call those feathers. But it's really playing those up, really allowing us to see that much better by cutting out that tree. So I would consider maybe cropping it something like this, very strongly. And then of course, if in doubt, we always go with the black and white thing. Because you can take the yellow slider and get that beak back. The eye and the beak back. I don't know.
You won't hear me say this very often, but this one works better in color.
Yeah, I'm kind of, as I'm doing that, I'm just going, yeah, I think you're right, Kev. But just kind of give you some ideas of
Yeah.
both. And by all means, I know a lot of you guys will play but try and push it, go to extremes. I've come across some in my images that the obvious that I think the cropping or the color balance or whatever, when I'm shooting it, when I first sit down with it, is to do this, this, or this. And then it just doesn't work. And then I'll come back an hour or a day later, whatever, and all of a sudden I've done something totally remote to it that I would never
Yeah.
have thought in the first place. And man, all of a sudden you got a masterpiece. This is called Peak of Majesty. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, black and white right up my alley. Breathtaking scene for sure. Looks like the maker was at elevation when they captured this, well above tree line.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's again, the subject matter is the peak, and it's in the center of the frame. It's commanding attention very well. I think I'd like to see a little more contrast in here. I'm not seeing a true white. I'd love to see these peaks a little brighter and a little more contrast in the sky, perhaps. Presentation wise, it works. It's a skinny presentation. I might fatten that up a little bit too, but it's not commanding. The presentation is nice and subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good movement throughout. It looks like the exposure is a little bit long to where the clouds are just ever so slightly blurred. So I would drag the exposure even, minutes even if you're going to do that to get the clouds really blurred.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of how
Eventually.
awesome this would be with you get just the right time. There's just enough substance in here to not just make it be a gray sky. You know how you tell me about that? When you get too many clouds in a long exposure, you just get that gray sky. But just a little bit longer would
Yep.
be nice streaks with these. You get some beautiful gradations in the clouds that could be some nice streaks in that sky.
Mm-hmm.
This one little cloud up here kind of pulls my attention. I can't decide if it's good or bad. But maybe I would eliminate that. And there's little bits of white along the border right here, maybe this little bit right here. And let
Sure.
that kind of be a negative sky to kind of balance. You've got plenty of other textures and patterns going on in both the sky and the peak. And we get some, some darkness down here, maybe a little bit of darkness in the sky here could kind of balance this dark bottom corner a little bit, is what I'm thinking. Yeah, and this little spot you circled here, right on the border.
Those edge elements are tricky. They get you.
And they do. And again, and this is something my dad would tell me. He says, look at, squint your eyes and look at the edge of the scene. And if there's something that catches your attention, you ask yourself, is this helping my image or not? So it may not necessarily automatically be get rid of it, but more times than not, if it's on the edge, it's going to not help your image. So yep, get rid of it. Tom, what do you want to add?
You said almost everything, and at first blush, it seems like there's plenty of contrast, but I think Kevin's right, particularly the mountains in the foreground, and maybe not. We want local contrast, not scene contrast. There's plenty of that, so maybe just a little clarity or a little sharpening might give this sense of contrast that we're looking for. So, local contrast versus scene contrast. The local contrast being across a very small area of it, got a crispiness to it, and again, you don't want to overdo it or over sharpen it or do too much clarity. It makes it look silly. It's just it's very subtle, but I think that could be done. And that one white area of the clouds right above the peak, slightly camera left, that I think needs to come out or come down.
Yeah, if you bring that down into this gray kind of tone, leave the shape there, but maybe bring the tone of it down. Even like in the tone of this little cloud up here, I think would be good because it is
Right.
pulling attention. Yeah, just be careful of sharpening or anything when you'd like that with images and there's clouds. And my favorite line is clouds don't have edges. They don't have sharp edges. And if all of a sudden it looks like you can shave with a cloud, you've gone too far. So
Well, yeah, and absolutely, you want to do any of the sharpening, any contrast. I would say anything on an image, you want to do it selectively. You can't just throw you can't just have a one overlaying impact for everything. You have to do
Yeah.
it selectively. So the peaks.
Yeah, the global, you're talking about the global adjustments.
Global,
Yeah,
thank
you need to
you.
be careful. Yep.
A little trick that I've been doing this for years, is I always add a little bit of a softness to the sky. There's that term that effect years ago, and still do it, the Orton effect. I mean, you can take and sharpen up the mountain here pretty nicely, but just go in and just mask the sky and just take the softness, make it just a little bit soft, not too far, but just enough to give it its cloudy feeling. And that's a pretty cool technique. Try that on an image sometime. You'll be glad you did. Okay. We now have Peer Way to Heaven. Peer Way to Heaven. You'll get it when you see the picture. Tom, your thoughts?
I'm stepping on the cord and knocking my computer over. Yeah, I'm with you now. And I'm sorry, what was the title again?
Peer Way to Heaven.
Your Way to Heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. Very nice supporting title, in fact.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes tough to name it, such a thing. I think it's all working generally, but a few adjustments I would look towards is certainly this let me get my pen. Let's see if I can actually do this. I think this will work. This area to get rid of that little thing. That's the first thing I saw. One of those little things that you overlooked when you're working on an image. That's why you got to have another pair of eyes looking at it, another set of eyes. And then this area over here where it goes cool. Everything is warm in here. It's cool on either side. I'd like to see this brought down a little bit on camera right. And maybe some color adjustments on camera left here into the water here. It just feels almost artificially cool. I'm sure that's I'm sure that's a natural occurrence in the capture, but I'd like to see it warmed up a little bit so it isn't quite so much contrast to the rest of the water.
Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of that for sure. I'm really enjoying the overall composition is really nice here. I think you have this beautiful kind of triangular composition happening. It's interesting as the more I look at this, the more I'm seeing it looks almost, it's not, it's an optical illusion because I've studied it now. The whole image looks like it's rotated ever so slightly counterclockwise, but it isn't. And it just has to do with the angle that's happening here, and then the angle of the clouds coming in like this makes it look like the horizon isn't level, but it is level. It is level. It's just an optical illusion. I don't know if you guys are seeing that or if it's just me.
No, but I
Maybe
see
I'm
what you're
just
saying
tired.
now.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the,
But I do agree with what Thom was saying here on the right edge. That one little light trap at the top for sure needs to be cloned out. And then the lower right edge there, that color imbalance, if you will.
down on the left here.
Yeah, left and right actually, but the right edge for sure. Yeah.
Well, me and my feeling, I first look at this and think, I'd do something like this. And I think it still keeps the feeling of all this, I mean, this lovely water and all
Yeah.
these textures and things, but it's bringing us more into the subject a lot faster.
Mhm.
And really, I think highlights this diagonal of the pier into
Mhm.
the boat. Because I mean, how much water do we need to have down there to tell the story? I think this still tells a story, and it just eliminates some. There wasn't much going on down there. Gets rid of those. Matter of fact, we could maybe even come in just a hair to get rid of some more of that brightness of the water on the down on the far right there, and it brings the boat more into that third, and I think that's kind of cool. The other thing too, and this is a tough one, but anytime you run the horizon, let me get my pen again here. Anytime the horizon line runs through your subject matter, you're losing the essence of depth to the scene. I know that's tough because sometimes we're on the shore and there's nothing we can do. There's not a car you can climb on or a building or something. But if that horizon line was just up here above the, you won't see my red in this picture. So the boat was below the horizon line. I think that would just give it that much more depth, size comparison of this pier going out in the boat and then how much ocean is beyond it. And I guess that sometimes I realize you can't get that, but just put that in your mind anytime you come on a scene where you've got your subject matter and there's a horizon line. It doesn't have to necessarily be the earth and sky. It can be a building, it can be road, it can be something that's creating this strong horizontal element. If it's right through your subject, you're going to lose excuse me, depth and impact in the scene. So then we have Please Don't Go. Please Don't Go. There's no mat in this one, but let me just hang on. It's filling up our frame here pretty good. I don't think there's a mat in this one. It may be, there might be a little black one around it, but I see a key line. Tom, what do you think?
Oh, I like it. I like it. Lots of great storytelling. Uh, it feels illustrative and contrived in a good way, and I mean that in a good way. It feels like a story being told with great deliberation, with models. I like the use of the practical lighting as the motivating practical, so that's all the light that's in the room. I get it. That works. In terms of color, with that yellowed lampshade, I'd like to see that yellow transfer to the color that's falling on the subjects. And that's about the only criticism I have. The
So
scene
making the
designs-
light hitting them more to be warmer, like the lamp you're saying.
Right, right.
Gotcha.
And you know, and in a natural sense, the light is so close that light would fall off much more quickly than it is in the scene. There's obviously some other lighting going on. So diminishing maybe the value of that light some would diminish our perception of that. I mean, were that the only light, her arm would be very bright yellow, and it would fall off entirely on the male subject. But I think that can be dealt with. If not true to physics, at least more in line with our perception.
Right. Kevin, added thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is wonderful storytelling in this image all throughout. And I like the title that supports that storytelling. It's very cinematic to me.
Yeah.
And like Tom was saying, the use of a practical and what if for those of you that don't know, a practical is a light source that's actually designed to be in the frame, used, all the way back in cinema as well. You put a practical in. It's difficult to do because the light itself has to be quite dim in the practical. You can't just put a 60-watt bulb in there and have it work. I think it's handled well, but also agree that the color balance that's on them needs to be in the same tonality or the same color as the practical itself. Great storytelling. I'm not a portrait photographer, so I can't speak to the posing or the hand placement or any of that, but I do like this image. It's a strong image to me.
Yeah, you guys have said it all pretty well. I couldn't agree more with. I really love the story here, and that's one of the things I used to try and do in some of the portrait work I did years ago, was to try and really get the interaction of the subjects to tell that story, why they're there, what's going on. Even the expressions in their faces have some questioning values there that make us wonder, what are they talking about? Are they fighting? Are they just, what's going on? That was the first thing that caught my eye. Both of you guys mentioned the color of the light. There's a very, very warm amber lampshade, and the light hitting them doesn't appear to have that tone or that temperature to it. That would be, I think, a huge plus. But man, what a great story. The pose throughout is very comfortable. It works. They're overlapping, so it shows them together, but they still have, because of their poses, they still have their separation. Minor little thing, but we see little details underneath his arm. And I'm not sure what's going on right here, but I would eliminate that just to clear that up a little bit. I like there's a little bit of light, whether it's the back of the chair, if that's maybe her other arm or something, but I would get rid of this, whatever this is right here. And then also one, again, minor thing, the color of the linen, it's probably a linen liner on this frame. I think I might tone that down. Don't get rid of it. I like that there's something there, but maybe if that was toned down even just a little bit more, so it was a little more subtle, it's kind of giving me this little feeling of impending doom, and or maybe that's what you're trying to say with this arrow pointing right back at the cause. We have them kind of pinned in between the frame and the light, if you will. So there is tension there, which helps tell the story. And other little things that, we talk about competition, it's minor things. The vein on the back of his hand, I'd maybe tone that down, eliminate it. But again, it's just one of those eye-catching things that not helping the story, but it's there. It's catching it. So
I have one
question. There's a question. What do you think about blurring out or eliminating the detail in that print?
let me ask a quick question that first. Christine, did you mean it for this image or the other image? Because this has been up here for a while. I want to make sure we're talking about the right image. This one, okay. Okay. Go ahead, Tom. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Talk. I'm sorry. Was there a question?
Yeah, let me say it again. What she's asking is, what do you think about really blurring out or eliminating the detail in the print?
Well,
guess-
that would be a whole other route. I mean, you can give it a painterly look or a more, even extreme impressionistic look. I kind of like it the way it is.
Yeah.
It's a story. It's still very painterly with a dramatic lighting. If you're going to reshoot it, I'd certainly move this floor lamp out as the practical light. I'd move that out to the left, frame it a little bit bigger. And
Still
I'm
leave
not
it in the picture.
sure get understanding that this light or this, there's no light fall off. It should be very bright on her arm and fall off on him. And maybe it's only photographers that are going to be able to identify that, but I think anybody's going to have a sense of that something's not quite right there.
I
So
think what she's referring to is the picture on the wall.
Yeah, I actually like that you can see another like almost a subject matter up here. That
Yeah.
said,
It looks like they're eavesdropping.
yeah, kind of. That said, I would maybe like to see these two little spots kind of go away.
Ooh,
Those
I
are a little
do-
distracting.
I disagree there. I think they add a lot to it.
These two spots here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
Okay.
couple of eyes looking at us down there and keeping
Yeah.
an eye on the scene, and then it flows in this red in the background.
Yeah.
Comes across the bottom of the wall. Yeah,
I would like to also commend the
you-
maker on the verticals. This lamp being and the
Yeah.
shade being perfectly vertical and horizontal here. That's very well handled.
Even
Very
the
well.
picture frame too is,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with Tom on that. If you take those those highlights in the area out of it, then the whole top right third
Mm.
corner of that image gets just nothing. And I'm even looking at a thumbnail over in my Finder, and just that little bit of whatever the face and the color, it's an anchor, or maybe not an anchor, but a balance to the whole
Yeah.
scene. So I think
Yeah.
this is a really great story. I like what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Play with it, maker, play with it, and maybe make some changes and try it again, because I think you got something. I love these stories. I think you got something good going here. So
Very cool. Great title too.
yeah, that's the other thing we talk about titles. This one's called Practicality. Oh, I see that they've got. Oh, okay, I see what's happened here. So the maker has put in here Practicality or Patriot. They're wondering what we think about the title. So, obviously, photojournalism. Maybe I should say obviously, but to me, it leans towards that photojournalism kind of a feel. And I think it's definitely speaking to the whole story of the Black history of America. The posters, whatever that is hanging on the wall in the background, gives us some more of the history. I like the placement. It seems, and technically, the white on the flag is a little bit blown out, so I don't know if it's just a little bit heavy contrast, maybe, is what I'm seeing. It seems like even her headgear, whatever we want to call that, could be a little deeper in tone. Her face doesn't show that much. Again, it's a photojournalistic, so the face doesn't have to be prominent. But we do have one person in there, so we're naturally going to go to that face. And then, I know it's photojournalism and such, but that bullhorn back there just is asking for too much attention. I just make a step to your left, ma'am, turn your face to me a little bit more if you can do those things. Because I know technically we can't go in and remove that, but that bullhorn is asking for too much attention.
But is it though? Is it part of the story? Like she's just coming back from a protest?
Yeah, I would like to have seen it, maybe more separation between her then. You're right, it's got a good point to the story, true.
Yeah, it immediately reminded me of a Gordon Parks, image right away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Turn this to black and white.
That's quite a compliment for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as has been said, with the brighter areas, look at how much that works. Just go into black and white there. If we took down the highlights a little more on the flag and on her headpiece, that adds some drama to the whole thing.
I like that a lot better. Yeah.
And if this was I don't know if this meets the requirements. The maker would have to have the integrity to treat this in a way that meets the requirements of the repertoire category as an entry, in that nothing could be done to it except for cropping, contrast, and color. But yeah, this might function really well in that category if it meets the criteria.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this: in repertoires, can you not alter the global exposure of it?
Sure.
No,
Oh,
that
yeah.
you can.
Okay.
Yeah. But you can't, and you can even go in and you can burn and dodge a little bit too.
Yes.
Contrast and tonal range and things like that, but you can't remove things. Even if it's one lousy little stick stand in the middle, you're not supposed to remove
I see.
or alter the overall feeling of the image as it was recorded. But yeah, you can go black and white and change tones and things. And
Okay.
you can go and burn. I mean, you could go in and dodge and, maybe hold back the face a little bit, the mask of the face, to bring her eyes up. You can do that kind of stuff. This is nice. I have to say, I really like the black and white in this one.
Yeah.
But
I do too.
that's just me. Okay, so we have a few more here. We have, this one is called Reach. Tom, thoughts?
Oh yeah, the immediate thoughts are it's very impactful, very nice treatment, soft, tender flower, well lit, full dynamic range. Could you zoom in on it a little bit?
Yeah, man. The flower head more or just overall?
Yeah.
Was
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah, and it's all there too.
Yeah, there's plenty of detail there.
Throughout, lots of details in the where the stem meets the petals. No, that's good. exquisite, well done, separation from the background. I think it's all there. I really have nothing to add with the exposure. Personally, I'd make the presentation perhaps just a little darker, and particularly the inner bevel, if that's a bevel, I would bring that down some.
Mhm.
Lesser, you're saying lesser of a bevel?
Yeah, it's just too pronounced there.
We don't see bevels too often in PPA competition. Do you think it's just something that people just don't do, or they're afraid of doing it, or you'll see a stroke there instead of a bevel?
Yeah, and I'm speaking solely for myself, but
Oh, yeah.
I don't do pinstripes, and I think they're, in most cases, they're just kind of distracting, and there's a great deal of emphasis on adding a pinstripe, even in the tutorials on the PPA website. So
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of them. I don't think they're necessary. I prefer the bevel. I just, in this case, I think it might be nice if the whole mat was a little bit darker, but the flower is just wonderfully done. I can't
It's exquisite.
can't suggest anything could be done differently. It has full dynamic range. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely got that full dynamic range when you say it that way. It definitely has. Look at it. I mean, the tonal range is just outstanding in here. The only thing I maybe would suggest is the highlight on the stem. If that was just, it's pulling the attention there first. Minor thing, but maybe if that was just a, a stop or a level deeper, let the flower. But I love photographing into the backs of flowers and the stem and all that kind of thing. It's just so much beautiful detail there. This is just done so well. Good job. Kevin, anything you care to add?
No, I think you guys have covered it well. I agree with the presentation probably being a little bit darker, and that bevel maybe being even thinner, perhaps. I think maybe the reason a lot of people don't do bevels is they maybe they don't think about it, or they may not even know how to do them. But it looks really cool when they're done well.
I
But
agree.
this whole presentation could be knocked down a little bit, couple notches. I think would help that out potentially. Yeah.
One thing I see that, and I've done this a few times in competition, I would just make the whole thing black. So I mean the whole mat area and everything black, and then just have a very soft, thin 1 or 2 point keystroke to frame the image itself. And that's it. No bevels, no any extra colors, nothing, just that stroke in there.
Yeah, I
I've
see
done
what you're
that a few
saying, yeah.
times. That's pretty sweet, I think. All right, good work. I like the title too, is good, Reach. It definitely creates a story of something that could be kind of stagnant otherwise. But it does create that, what am I reaching for? What's the flower going for? So we have Ready for the Night. And there is no presentation on this, I don't believe. I can't see anything, so we'll just ignore that. So, Tom, thoughts?
Sure. Well done. Well composed. Lighting good across the face. Um, falls off a little in detail and into the lower end of the robes. They feel a little bit milky and maybe a velour or something like that. I I think its shortcoming is the background. It seems almost figurative in parts of it, like there's a fence or something behind it, but not enough to know what that might represent. And then it's a kind of a busy, although it's subdued, it's kind of a busy thing going on. Particularly to the camera left, right in front of his face there. Oh yeah, I can draw this area here. And these two lines here are really distracting. I don't think they're necessary or adding to the story. And then the very light area down here at the base of it, particularly in the bottom left here, I think those could be brought down and just diminish the importance of the back, or the attention to the background, I think would add to it.
Kevin, what you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with those comments more. I was right out of the gate was a little was battling with that background, the kind of the busyness of what's happening over his right shoulder. Some of that stuff that's happening over there. I'm trying to get my drawing tools up here. Yeah, kind of this little area that's right in there.
Yeah.
Some of these little distractions right off his robe at the bottom left as well. And then I think you covered it, Tom, you said the word milky. I think, were you talking about the tonality on his hands a little bit, I think?
No, I actually wasn't thinking about that. That might be correct. No, I was talking more about the robes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I
His
see that
robe.
now
I
too.
think it may be a velour. It has a different quality towards the top than it does towards the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
Might be black somehow.
Probably tough to get that lit if it's a velour.
Right, it's gonna suck it right
Yeah,
up.
because
Yeah.
it just soaks that light up so much. Yeah. Cool storytelling. I do love the center composition of it and the storytelling aspect and the way he's looking off frame there. Like his hair coming over just over his eye, but just enough where you can still see the white of his left eye. It's I think that's done well too.
Yeah, just you've got wild tones that are similar in the background and the robes, and yet I still see separation along here, just enough to give that standing out from the background. That was well done. So be careful of that. You know, something I'm seeing in a lot of videos online, and of all levels of Photoshop people, is that, and it's this new trend that they're actually taking in the curves layer, they're grabbing that bottom corner and pulling it up, and they're taking the black away from the scene.
Mm.
So it's kind of becoming this, I don't know if it's a style or whatever, but all the years that we've been told that, you know, black, there's got to be a black that's black in there and it can't be milky, and I've seen points go away for that, is now becoming a style. So I don't know how to
Yeah,
feel about
it
that.
is indeed. And then the very low opacity texture over that and
Yeah.
finished scene contrast. Yeah, that's a style. That's certainly,
And of course, if it's done well, more power to the maker, right?
yeah.
Yep.
And
Okay.
people do that so that when somebody sees it, they say, "Oh, you had that done in 2024."
That's, you know, that's so true.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, let's move along here. We have about half a dozen left here, and then I have uh, sneeze. Sorry about that. Blow your ears out, listener. Okay, so we have, and I'm not the best orator, but this is called me, Laura. This is called, is it sated? Sated? Oh boy, Sated. How would you guys pronounce that?
Sated.
Sated?
Yeah.
Yeah, sated.
Now, I will throw this at you too, that, and this is just me, I'm not familiar with that word, so as a judge, I'd look at that, I guess I'd have to assume what it means. So naming images, look for those kind of things. Watch that you don't name it a certain type of an animal or a certain lake that won't mean anything to a viewer, that won't help in the storytelling. And that's, embarrassingly say I'm not familiar enough with this word. I've heard it before, but didn't pick it up right off the top of my head. So, anyways, having said that, Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that's not my blood on him. For sure. That's this cheetah. I'm assuming that's a cheetah there. Is just got finished eating. Is very
Yeah.
happy with himself, and it's powerful, impactful image without a doubt. And the long lens, of course, blurring the background, giving this animal a lot of pop off the background is well handled, I think. And of course, you'd likely want to have a long lens on something like this if you're not in a controlled environment like a
If you're
zoo or
smart.
something. If you're smart, yes, exactly. And I like the fact that the background has kind of a painterly pastel look to it. It's
Yeah.
quite a juxtaposition to what's actually happening in this story. Yeah,
Good
pretty
point.
cool. Yeah.
Tom, can you add to that?
Well, yeah, excuse me. Oh, just for your information, Jeff, sated would it means that he's eaten it, he's full. He's had
Okay.
enough. Yeah. And so the title works, but and to your point, you got to be careful with titles, and especially PPA judging. I know, I have two sets of titles for a lot of my images.
Yeah.
One for the gallery, one for PPA judges, because you don't want it to go over their head. And you kind of have to go for something easily understandable. or hear about it later from. To the image though, no, I at first I was about to suggest that it be printed down some, and I keep seeing printed down. What's a good digital word for printed down?
You know what, in all my teachings, when I'll talk about, those kind of things, it ends up being make it darker.
Make it darker, yeah.
That's everybody understands.
Yeah, make
Yeah.
it darker. Yeah.
Make it darker.
Lower
Make it
the
darker.
exposure a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is to say, print it down. But anyway, that was my first thought, and Kevin pointing out that almost a light pastel quality, given the, in contrast to the scene and the blood on his face and the look at his eyes, maybe that's kind of cool to have it that way. So I can't say it's not, so I won't. I like the image, by the way. If I hadn't mentioned that, I like it very much. It's the animal's sharp, great depth of field, concentrates us on the animal, and him licking his lips tells all the story we need.
Oh, yeah,
It's pretty amazing too that I would like to comment on the fact that the timing of the capture is pretty remarkable. Him licking his lips there, him or her licking her lips there is happened pretty quick, and to get the tongue that's like laid right in that nostril.
Yeah.
The timing of that is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, this is great. Definitely story. You guys have really hit it well. The juxtaposition is that word that Rick and I always laugh at. It's a Dennis Hammond thing. Of the kill and the sharpness and the intensity of the look in the eye, and then the softness of the background really tells a great story. But if you look carefully, look at the face all the way around, up through the ears, up to the top. I mean, there's blood everywhere.
There is.
Look at this. Look at the coloring here, even through the base of the ear. They're all on the jawline. I mean, that's some intense stuff. That's really a very, very awesome capture and a wonderful story here. So if nothing else, that itself, I think, should carry this image a long way in a competition. And I would probably recommend this into the photojournalism category, because it is telling that story, and very well. So good, nice, good work. Good work. Okay. We now have Tusker. Again, I don't know if that's
That's a bird, isn't it, Jeff? Weren't you talking about that?
the Tusker. Yeah, another one of these bird pictures that we have here. Again, I'm not familiar if this is if the maker is just being, this is a big Tusker or something like that. It's a nickname, or if Tusker is the actual name for a big elephant with the big tusk like that. So again, it's just keep those things in mind. It's using some words that might be real in that situation, but for the general audience, if it's not, you're going to lose some of your punch, some of the story you're trying to tell. But having said that, I'm just going to this is absolutely a stunning capture of this guy. I mean, the composition, the placement, the movement, coming from right to left, even the placement, just little things like I was talking about before, this horizon line is above the animal, keeps the distance between the animal and the background. Not much you can do with a horizon line cutting. You can't have both. But then look at the bird down here. Look at the size difference and the intensity. Just a beautiful story. The composition is strong, great storytelling, color harmonies, the cool tones throughout the scene, and the warmth of the color of the big guy here. I think this was handled very, very nicely. The mattes really interesting and clever. Good color tones. It almost emulates the skin of the beast here. So, Kevin, what do you think?
Is there a texture in that matte, Jeff?
Very slightly. It's both on the mat and the lip. There's just a very fine keystroke between the two. So
yeah, I think if maybe you recall earlier, I didn't love the texture in a previous presentation that we saw, but it works well here for this image. I think that texture is so subtle and it just goes well, and the detail on the skin of this elephant is absolutely astounding. Jeff, you nailed it.
Yeah,
and the separation of the mountains in the background just above his back and head is well done. This is a great. I think this is a really good image. Absolutely.
Tom, you want to add to that?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I concur with everything both of you said. I love the way it's done. I've never seen an elephant in that particular kind of environment. It's unique that way. Texture on the skin is beautiful, tack sharp. A little bird down there that I'm guessing it was a lucky capture.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. As you mentioned, probably another good image for the reportage category. And I love the way it's not over treated. He isn't the skin is natural. It hasn't been overly sharpened or enhanced with a clarity slide or anything like that. Great image.
Yep, absolutely. Couple little tiny things. Again, these are those we talk about nitpicking, and we don't mean to sound it that way, but it's the little, yeah, exactly. Kevin just circled that. Just little things like that pull your attention away from the main subject matter. And I would even go into the background, just that little area there. This is fine right here. I would leave that alone because that's a natural little valley there. But those two little areas, I think they just pull your attention away from the subject matter for no reason. Even I would probably there's a little yellow leaf right there. I mean, again, we sound like we're nitpicking and we don't mean to be that way, but it's those little tiny things that will, if a judge looks at it and has to keep looking at many little things like that, the score will go down. You eliminate all that kind of stuff, and man, you've got something that's just merit worthy, as we used to say.
I can't tell you how many times I've printed my own works and hung them on my wall. And, after weeks of looking at it, I'm like, man, I should have gone in and cloned that little spot out,
Well, that said, again, and you got to be careful of that in the reportage category because
Oh, true. True.
you can't
I
do
keep
that in the
forgetting about
reportage
that part.
You
And
can't say it again, Tom. You can't do what?
You can't clone anything out.
In the
Oh, right.
reportage. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So, and I would, in an illustrative category, I would absolutely take it out. In the reportage category, don't do it or do it so well nobody can detect it. But if people are looking for that as
Yeah.
judges, they're starting to look for any evidence of
Sure.
Yeah,
cloning.
especially cloning tracks and things like that. So the reason I flipped this upside down, because this has probably been one of the best tricks I've ever learned I mean, a long time ago, when I was still working with my dad, if there was an image I was considering for competition, he would say, go make an 8x10 of it. Don't do anything else to it, just straight print. We'd take it out and we'd hang it on the darkroom door upside down and walk by it 3 or 4 days in a row just to see. And then I had a little grease pencil there for you newbies. It's a thing that you can write on. Never mind. And I would circle those little things like we talked about, like the little black spot and things like that. Whoops. And just see what you see from looking at it. Because and those of you who have worked with view cameras, this is how that works. When you put your head under the dark cloth and you open the shutter up, you see your image reverse and upside down. And it's the little things like that that catch your eye. And that's where you can make you that much better of a photographer by eliminating whether it's moving the camera, raising it higher or lower, printing it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Cool trick.
We just got about 3 more here. So let's go with the victorious final. Go a little smaller. Tom, what are your thoughts?
Well, definitely a reportage category, which is again, I think it's great that PPA now have that category, which the rest of the world has had for a long time, Europe and Mexico and Japan.
Right.
Good done, a good job. I'm not sure if it's the most decisive of moments. I think I think he's celebrating a goal after the fact. These guys have fallen in a pile. I'm just not sure. There's a lot of confusion and very few faces over here, but we sure understand his glee over here, as well as the guy behind him and that single fan in the audience. That's bad back there, I'm sure.
That's somebody's dad for sure, right?
I think the contrast may have been pushed just a little bit too far, particularly on the left-hand side of the photograph. But that's my only technical criticism.
Kevin, any more thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what what everything Tom was saying is spot on. I think the contrast was a little punchy to me when it first popped up. But the fan in the background is what just jumped out to me. The dad or whomever. That's the story to me more than anything else is that guy.
Right.
Love that. Yeah. Cool. It's a cool repertoire image. Yeah.
Yeah, when it popped up for me, I was kind of guessing that Dad's probably the guy in the stands is probably the father of the goalie. I'm guessing that the goalie made a good save there.
Hmm.
No, the goalie is the other team, isn't it? Never mind. I take that back. So number 60 there is laying in front of the goalie.
Hmm.
There's even another player folded up underneath to the left of the scene. So there's a lot of action going on. But yeah, the young man on the ice and then Dad back there with the hands in the air, fists of excitement, I think really tell a nice story. So very well done. Okay. Let's What's for dinner? Let's give us some size here. So I'll just point out maker on this, whoever did this image, what you saved for the show was just a little bit small for competition. I've had to enlarge it so we can see it, but that can they can't do that in a competition. If it's too small, it's going to be too small, and you're going to lose some impact. And you don't want to have it enlarged like this if it's not properly sized, because you'll get noise and all the stuff we don't want anybody to see. So, having said that, Tom, what do you think?
Oh, I like it, particularly with the increased size, and it has a soft quality, which I don't think has to do with resolution. I'm not seeing any serious resolution consequences. But yeah, I like it. I like the placement of the bird, that horizon line created with the wall or concrete or whatever you're stepping on. All the supporting green in the background gets complementary red of the bird. I think it works out really well. The bird is the center of attention, not only by his color, by a degree of local contrast that he has in his feathers. More than the wall, more than the background, stands right out. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. This image really jumped out at me right away. It's the composition is lovely. The color harmony throughout is really well done, and it almost has, I'm not certain, but it feels like there has been a like a painterly effect added to the background, which works actually for this. I think it works well, quite frankly. It softens the background a little bit while keeping the detail and the storytelling aspect of it. Love the placement of this guy right here, in the frame. I think that works well. Watch out for some of the teeny tiny little nitpicky things that we talked about earlier. Just some of those little things get you. Couple on the edge here, but this image works for me. I like it.
We have
Yep.
one comment that says that they think the background should be blurred more.
Yeah, what do you think of that, guys? If the trees are a little bit softer, would that work?
So if a painterly effect has been added to it, which I feel like there has been something done back there, like a kind of a watercolor type of a treatment, then sure. Yeah, I think you could probably even increase that some more to help that would soften that down a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
For my taste, it's right on. Because it's diminished in contrast and local contrast, it's got a little treatment on it. Maybe it's some oil paint, little oil filter or something like that. Whatever it is, I think it's very effective, and I think it's just the right amount to keep the integrity of the foliage, yet the bird is far more crisp and forward in the scene that we. I'm afraid of going too much farther with it wouldn't work, but maybe it would. I could be wrong.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think I love the background. I think it has all the things you guys have mentioned. It does have that soft, quality, painterly kind of a feel. And I think we got working for us the greens against the red of the bird. The bird stands out very nicely. So I don't know that you really would have to. You could play with it. You could soften it a little bit more. But yeah, I think if you went too far, you would have more of a blurry mess than something that would be beneficial. But you know what? Play with it and see. I think it's pretty good the way it is. All the things that the little spots that Kevin mentioned, I think I would eliminate those. But and I look at this and just me and my horizontals. I might even crop up the bottom, like lose half the half of the wall here, just to kind of still give a base to the scene, but maybe just play it up a little bit like that. So it's just a little bit less, lets the bird stand out more. You could even go,
You could pano this. You could do a 2-to-1 on it.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
even do something like that. Because again, you've got, when you have a background like this, like we talked about 2 or 3 of the other images with all the water and such, the story is being told. You don't need to have show all of it. So this really makes the bird stand out even more. It still tells us the bird's sitting on a wall, still tells us it's in some garden or, you know, beautiful background. But this now brings the bird out even more. So it's just something to think about.
Yep. I like it.
All right, let's see what else we have. I think we're done here. Oh, we can do one more here. I think I went out of order. Slapped my hand. Oh, here's 2 more we can do real quick. Might as well. Weathering. Wow. We're talking about long explosion. She's we're saying the words correctly. Long exposure earlier. This is what you get when you do that little bit longer exposure with the clouds, and it's got to be, the timing's got to be just right. Kevin will be the one to tell you that one, but more so because you can get a big, if they're not moved enough, then they're just gray spots. But if you go too much, then you got just gray sky. So man, the timing on this, it shows movement. It still has contrast. The placement of the lighthouse against the lighter part of that one cloud is just stellar. The long horizontal, we got about a 2-to-1, almost a 3-to-1 ratio. Just really gives it that really long, nice feeling. Everything's kind of flowing along from left to right like that. Tom, what do you think?
Oh, I'm all about it. I just wonderful images that comes up. Love just about everything about it. Everything you said about the clouds, getting that just that right amount of shutter drag so that they look interesting and not just smushy. My only thought is the reflection on presumably on the sand or a little bit of water in the sand, just on camera right. Oh, get my pen again. Here, I can do this. I can do this. Oops.
You can do it.
You do it. You can do it.
Oh, look at that. That's my nice. Yeah, this area in here, I think that could come down a little bit. Just so it's not competing with the central subject quite so much.
Kevin, anything you want to add, or
Yeah, I see that over there too. What he's talking about too, this competition right over here that he's talking about there. I believe that's the crashing waves there on the sandbar
sure
or
it
whatever
is.
that may be.
Sure it is.
Yeah, at first I thought you might have been talking about this teeny reflection of the lighthouse in there that's just barely noticeable. Kind of cool. But yeah, the long exposure I think helps add to that and the tonal range. Yeah.
There's a question here. Yeti, are you referring? Yeah, okay. He's saying flip the image. Stay there.
Flip horizontal. No, I think he meant.
I know he did, but my camera is just blocking that menu. So
I
just
see.
as I clicked, I moved it. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think it has some merit because we do, you know, we are taught to read left to right. So it does pull us into the scene. I don't know that because we have the cloud movement and the kind of the water, the land that the lighthouse is on kind of forms a point to the right. So it's telling us look to our left. So I don't, either way, I think it's fine. I think I kind of like this because there's the prominence of the sun. Wow. Maybe it's time to get dinner. The prominence of the sky and the direction that the clouds are moving tells me we're starting left and moving right. So I think I kind of like it this way. You guys have any thought on that?
So yeah, I like it this way much better. or the original.
The original way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Here's you need a leading line from the left. Here it is. It's already there. And it curtails at this end to hold us into the scene. So I
Sure.
think it works well that way. I am not a big believer in we read from left to right in an
Thank
image.
you. Me either, necessarily.
Yeah, I think that I'm trying to remember the art theorist name who invented all that.
I think it was it an artist or a scientist?
Oh no, he was an art critic.
Yeah.
The his name's right on the tip of my mind, which there's very little left of it this time of year.
And
But
for the listening
think that's-
audience, sorry, Tommy, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that the image determines where your eyes are going to go, and they've pretty well demonstrated that scientifically that you read through the image and based on the context. I won't go to the details, but I think it's a rule I wouldn't worry too much about. Is what I'm saying. I look at it, see what looks best, and
good point.
If it were true, the Japanese should do all verticals.
Right.
All right. Good point.
Well,
Yeah.
guys, I will tell you this from as long as I've known Tom and some of his compositional programs. If you want to know about composition, this is the guy you talk to. He knows more about composition than the rest of us have ever even heard about. So,
Nice.
I mean, he may have made a lot of it up. We don't know, but it works for him. So,
I think it's still one of the biggest mysteries in image making. I honestly do. And there's another artist quote to that. The magic is in composition more than any other feature. I still think that's true. And if we garner too many rules about it, then we're going to wreck our opportunities to create something original.
well, too, and I think we get into, and it's hard because in the judging world, we need to be critical. We need to, there's got to be images that score at certain levels and, winners of categories and all those kind of things play into it. But I think that there's times when those fine points can mess up an image. They can totally come off of what the maker was trying to say. I mean, I like walking into a gallery and just turn off my brain and just feel the images and see where they take me from there, instead of determining in my mind if it was cropped wrong or, wrong subject matter, all those kind of things. We have one more image. Let's talk about that real quick, and then we can go home and go to bed. Woodland Splendor. Tom, thoughts?
Sure. And I think you landscape guys should probably take control of this one. But my first thought is the water's so bright and the shutter speed maybe a little bit longer. It's a beautiful subject and beautiful place. Nice light, nice saturation. The only thing for me is the water. I think the shutter speed was a little slower than it perhaps should have been. I'd love to see just a little more detail in areas of the water.
So maybe more like in what's happening up in here.
Yeah.
See a little bit more of the striation.
On the shadow side
It's
of
kind of blown out along in here. Kevin,
Yeah.
what do you think?
And on falling water like this, that's usually only going to be about a second long will get you that.
Right.
Yeah. And then once you go beyond that, you've maxed the effect of the water is maximized at that point. So you're not gaining anything by going longer, but you could actually hurt it. I tend to like really soft waterfalls like this, but in this particular one, I think there's too much light hitting it. It's the time of day, or it's not an overcast day enough. And so the white water is just blowing out compared to the rest of the scene. I think you might be all right actually, lowering the exposure of the globally of the entire scene so that it knocks the water back, but it also makes the woods be a little more haunting, maybe.
Good point. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see, especially back up in the top up here. We go
Yeah.
off into here and back
It
into
would just
here.
get really dark up there, and it could make it quite haunting looking. This one has the good possibility to be a great black and white, actually.
Well, let's just see about that.
I was going to ask.
So with the yellows and the greens here, we can really play up that tonal range in there.
Mm-hmm. Down, down, down. Yeah, it's interesting. It's not speaking to me as much as I thought it would in black and white.
You know, the one thing that I see in this, as pretty as this scene is, there is a lot going on here.
There's a ton.
There is a lot of just everything about it. Texture and shapes and patterns. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Landscapes are messy, guys. They're tricky, you know. Landscapes are just
are.
messy by nature.
They are. Absolutely. Well, good stuff, guys. Well, that's our last image for the evening.
Cool.
Let me come out of so you can. There's everybody. Oh, they're still here. I always like that whenever I share this or take the screen over. I'm just hoping that when I come back, there's still faces looking at me.
I just realized my face has been here like this all night.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Back
see
and
it, Tom,
forth,
because I
top of
was
the
buried in
head,
Photoshop.
down. Yeah.
So first of all, let me just say, is there, Tom, Kevin, anything you want to add to what we've seen tonight?
No, I'll let Tom speak to that.
Oh, no, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the, almost everything I've seen tonight, I appreciated. Well done, a lot of really brilliant
stuff.
and others that I think might be brilliant with a little more time, a little more post-production. Great job, great stuff.
Yeah, I can second that. I think most all the images that came through tonight were really well done, and the ones that needed some work needed only a little bit of work, and they're there. I mean, so it was a pleasure to see all these images come through tonight.
Yeah, that's
Hey.
what's been fun about doing this program is that we see a lot of great imagery come through, and hopefully we've got a little bit of feedback for each one of you image makers that'll maybe not necessarily take this image into the loan or image. I'm never going to say imaging excellence. It's always going to be loan to that higher level. But I'm hoping that you just learn some little things here and there that will just take your photography overall. Cliff, anything you want to add?
I'm good, man.
I'd like to show you, I just made a print of a landscape in my style.
Oh, I want to see this.
It's pretty rare for me. I did enter one landscape, a traditional one that actually loaned, but here's a.
Wow, yeah. So again, for the rest of you guys out there in listening land, if you haven't, go to the imagecritiqueshow.com and pull up the page on top. I saw that. Yeah, that's when you.
Nice.
That's cool. And look at his work and the stuff that he's done. It's just mind-blowing stuff. And this is one of them that's on the site too.
That's cool.
This one is
Awesome.
nuts.
That gives me a good idea. I actually have an image of a lake and some mountains like that. The sky is just blue. I don't know what to do with it.
Well, I retired from PPA judging, and there's no detail in the shadows. I want to point out that.
That'll
And
boy.
I wanted to do that.
Well, Kevin and I talk about that all the time, that how many times we've made an image where there's black is part of the story. And to
Right.
put detail in it would give us the viewer too much to look about instead of thinking about it, you know?
Yeah.
So any questions? Oh, sorry, Tommy, go ahead.
You ever been to Acadia,
Oh, yeah.
Maine? Yeah. I've been up there quite a bit.
Yeah.
I teach a workshop with a landscape guy, and we're kind of the odd couple because you know what I do, but boy, I love going up there. I love going out and shooting. I'm never going to print them or sell them, but it's fun.
Doing it for yourself. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's of all the traveling that I do in my workshops, everybody asks me places where do I like the best, and I really can't name one, but that is at the top of the list. There's just something about that area. It's just special. Questions from the rest of you? Thoughts, comments, bad jokes? Since Rick's not here to share jokes.
Yeah. We missed Rick's bad jokes tonight. I tried to fill in, but I came up short on the bad joke department.
Hey, one thing, so if you guys, you're still on, go back into the chat box. It may be gone now. Let me add something. I've put up there, and you guys have all seen this, but the 12 elements of design, kind of the rules, so to speak, that are used by PPA judges, but just in general for judging. I hate the word judging. That seems so final. Critiquing or working with your work. And I have my elements of design page laying on my desk all the time. You know, it's just really cool. to have it to refer to. Anytime I'm doing any kind of an image for whatever reason, it's just some good guidelines, if you will, to help you kind of put your image into some really cool stuff. So.
Yep. And remember, you don't have to have all 12 elements.
Oh,
to
absolutely
make
not.
it-
No.
it's- The more you have, the better, of course, but you can be missing a lot of those elements and still have a very impactful, successful image.
And I think what it does though is when you have those in mind, it helps you become a better photographer too. So it's not
Sure.
just waiting and sitting down here at the computer to do your nice work. You're seeing it out in the field. And there's nothing better than to go see something in the field, capture it, come back and sit down and maybe tweak a few little things and then not spend much time on it and be happy with it. That to me is that's my ultimate reward, to know that I put my time in my talent and my thoughts into creating image and not relying, I can always Photoshop it.
Sure.
I hate that term. Anyways. Well, cool, gang. Thank you for tuning in with us this evening. Thank you, Thom, so much for being part of the gang tonight. We really appreciate that.
Thank you for watching the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson and Rick Avalos. Learn more by checking them out at theimagecritiqueshow.com.